The petty moving out. I was dating this guy for about 3.5 years. For last few months of our relationship, we had moved in together. Worst decision ever. With our friend's house. When we moved in, my parents had given us a bunch of cooking pans/pots/dishes/ etc. I had brought in sheets for the bed, hangers, and some other household items. Outside of the items used in the bedroom, we shared all of this with our roommate, as there was the one kitchen. Well, at the last 3 or so weeks of our relationship, I ended up sick and was in the hospital for a few days. My, now, ex-boyfriend came to visit me and broke up with me while in the hospital. We lived together. I was allowed to still live in the home until I could figure something out. He didn't mind us still living together for a bit because we would still do the bump and grind and act like we were dating still. Things started to eventually get worse and worse between us. The last day I lived there, he got physical with me and told me to get out and die in a gutter. My mom was able to come and pick me up. After a few days, my ex told me that he packed up all my stuff and to come and get it when him or our roommate was home, and to leave the key. I borrowed my mom's car and picked up a friend to help with my things. I had some of my items at the house we lived in and at his dad's house, so I had to go there as well. I went to his dad's first, loaded up, and left fairly quickly. I then went to our home and I did grab the boxes he packed of my things. I did notice, though, that not everything was in those boxes. All of the items I listed above were not in those boxes. Well, he did tell me to pack my stuff and get out. I think things that my family gave us falls under the category of my stuff. So, I found another box packed up all of my items that I had brought into the house. So, that meant all of the pots, pans, dishes, silverware, cooking utensils, sheets, pillows, blankets, hangers, shower items, and even the groceries that I had just purchased with my own money. I didn't want him to have to be worried about having to see any of my things and have a constant reminder of me. I had needed a Sharpie so that I could label my boxes correctly. I couldn't find any paper to test the marker on, so his wooden desk looked like a perfect substitution. Paper comes from wood, so same difference. Before I left, I noticed that we somehow had a cup of soda that had started to grow, and we didn't have any more trash bags, because I took those back too from the grocery shopping I did. So I needed to find a place to get rid of it. I decided that the best place for it was on our bed. After taking the sheets off that I brought back, I figured I could be nice and at least make the bed with the sheets he brought. I first added my special ingredient, moldy soda. Once it was dumped onto the bed, I made the bed with the clean sheets and left the home. I also had reached out to our cable company. I advised that the roommate had called a friend of theirs that worked with that cable company and was receiving stolen cable. The unfortunate part of this petty revenge is that I never knew the outcome of what they say and did after they came home to nothing, a new moldy soda bed, or the loss of cable. I imagine a lot of anger and a lot of money spent immediately. Don't worry, I installed the gutters for you. Quick update. Both open houses from over the weekend are over and I have heard absolutely nothing from the developer. Considering the absolute shit build quality, I wouldn't be surprised if he thought his team did it. My wife and I debated if it was worth sending a bill for the materials, $50, or waiting until he replies. We opted for the latter, and I'll let you know when that happens. I live in a neighborhood with very densely packed single-family homes separated by a small alley. This means that the gutters are often connected, share downspouts, and oftentimes are only accessible via the adjoining property. The house next door to mine is being redeveloped and my gutters, along with theirs, were ripped off as part of the demo, specifically the downspout extensions and elbows leading away from my property. When it rains, our unfinished basement gets water. Not enough to be a big deal, but enough to piss me off. Dealing with the developer has been a pitta, and every time I asked when they would be reinstalled, he'd either ignore me or check with the team. This was my first experience as a homeowner, and if I can give one piece of wisdom to anybody, it's just send a demand letter as soon as possible in a situation like this, because going back and forth is stupid and wastes time. Flash forward. We are facing a rainstorm this weekend, and I tell him if he doesn't install them, I will. He gives me the usual team is on it note, and nothing happens. 7 a.m. on Saturday comes, and in the words of Czarface, if you doubt my word, test me. I run to Home Depot, get 3 10-foot extensions, elbows, and zip ties. I perform a very hideous install that crisscrosses the deck. I make no cuts to the downspouts, and they hang 3 to 6 feet off the deck rail, secured by zip ties, emptying into the yard where they exited 3 inches of rain over the course of the day. A truly garish job. Whole thing was a blast and I finished by 9:30. Anyway, the open house began at 10:30. Whenever he gets around to asking me what I was thinking, I'm going to tell him I need to check in with the team first. What are you waiting for? In college, my best friend moved into my apartment with her girlfriend, whom I was cordial with. We had a kitchen in our apartment, which we all shared. I had been living there for a few years already, so I had it completely stocked with pots, pans, cutlery, glasses, everything you'd need. I also kept the fridge relatively stocked with the basics, such as milk, butter, condiments, dressings, filling the Brita filter, etc. I thought these were basics of a human household in the US. Life was fine, until the girlfriend started trying to control the entire house, including our food choices, when we could and couldn't shower, who could come into the house and when, etc. I was accommodating. I gave her a heads up if people were coming over, and we created a shower schedule. But her control issues really became a problem in the kitchen. Now, ick about y'all, but where I come from, butter is a condiment. I buy butter like I buy milk, or ketchup, or mayonnaise, or ranch dressing. It's just always getting restocked, and it's a staple of the fridge. I bought Kroger brand. If it's low, you buy more.
Speasy.
One evening, I used a small slab/cut of butter that was in the fridge for my dinner. I didn't think anything of it. This girl got so mad at me for using her butter, literally just Land O'Lakes, nothing fucking fancy, that she wrote on the paper-wrapped stick of butter with a pin. This is not your butter. So what did I do? I carefully unwrapped the Kroger brand butter stick and switched it with the Land O'Lakes butter and wrapped them back up. She never knew the difference. We had so many more arguments after that, but I never told her about the butter. She still has me blocked on all forms of social media to this day, 10 years later. My cousin's revenge on people who wanted to beat him up. This happened in India nearly 45 years ago. My family belongs to a backward or lower caste. India's caste system is horrible and hasn't changed in years despite so many attempts at it. People are still casteist and are terrible to those they perceive of lower caste. This story takes place in a southern state of India, Kerala. Today, Kerala is known for its excellence in education and healthcare. But there was a time this state was drenched in caste system and caste-related atrocities. It was total madness. Post-independence from Brits and good governance by state government, especially the left-leaning parties, great strides were made to fix caste issues. But not everyone was happy with this. By that I mean the upper caste. People in my state, especially those of old money, have huge traditional homes with land and traditional ponds, which are used to swim and bathe. When he was a teenager, my cousin accidentally ventured into the property of an upper caste family and fell into their pond. My cousin managed to get out, and once they figured out who it was, they were enraged. Not just because he trespassed, but also because according to them he polluted the water with his presence in it. Any lower caste person touching an upper caste person's belongings pollutes it. So they got mad at him and wanted to beat him up. My cousin was backed by his family and members of his caste. This resulted in a mini-caste war. Before things could get to a riot level, members of the local community were able to simmer things down. But my cousin never forgot what happened. 45 years later, the upper caste family is no longer as powerful or influential. 20 years ago, their arrogance caught up with them. Most members of that family lost their money to alcohol and extravagant lifestyle. A few years ago, a member of that same family that wanted to beat my cousin begged him to buy a piece of their land as they badly needed the money. My cousin brought the land he accidentally trespassed on years ago, along with the pond he fell in. They were reluctant to sell it, but my cousin settled for nothing else and made them sell it for the lowest value. He even got his friends to block other buyers. They finally sold it to him, and now he is their neighbor. The people who wanted to beat him ended up begging him for deliverance. I love this revenge story. Coworker is territorial about her shared desk. I'll just make it worse. Our office is hybrid post-pandemic, and to cut down on costs, we now have a shared desk situation. The only people with permanent desks are the higher-ups, or people who come in full-time. My coworker, who shows up about 2 times a week, still treats her desk like her own personal desk, even though our whole team is supposed to use it. She's a bit of a grump and never removed her personal items and pictures, even though we were asked to do so. 90% of the time we just leave her desk alone because it's too annoying to deal with her complaints, and our manager basically avoids dealing with her because she's such a headache. But there are times when there just isn't many open desks, so I have to sit at her desk and things get moved, of course. Nothing major, just the usual stuff with a shared desk. But of course she always complains and whines, and tries to make us feel bad for using her desk. A few weeks ago it got to be too much. Someone else sat at her desk and adjusted a lot of things, and so she blew up at me. I told her I hadn't sat at her desk, but she just whined about all the times before. I was done. So for the last few weeks, whenever I go past her desk, I make sure to move something or unplug something. It's been pissing her off so much. The best moment came yesterday when she was freaking out because her laptop died mid-meeting. She's not great with technology and was freaking out. Of course she called IT, and when they came they simply pointed out that her power cord was loose. I wonder how that happened. Our IT guy has a way of talking which was perfect for the moment, because he basically walked her through a step-by-step process of plugging in the cord while everyone else could hear. She basically looked like a moron for not knowing how to check if it was plugged in. I couldn't stop smiling. Controlling librarian. Took my students to the library, and one of my students who has anxiety lost a small piece of paper. He asked for a new one, and the librarian refused. Student came to me anxious asking for help. We looked in the areas he had been and couldn't find it. At this point my student is close to tears. I wait my turn and ask the librarian if I can use one of the papers no one wanted for anxious student. He said no. After thinking about it, I announced to my class that anyone who could find it would get a reward. Complete chaos. Librarian tried to quiet them down. Didn't work. I didn't help. Librarian announced that he would look later. My students kept running around looking. Chaos continued. Grinning, squinting face. After about 10 minutes it was found, and we all cheered. I could have easily quieted them down at any time, but fuck that over-controlling noob. Your little rules should not be more important than an excellent student with anxiety being stressed. Tired face. Another evil daughter story. She hates bullies. A girl on her bus was bullying and making life terrible for another little girl. It didn't matter where this kid sat, because it always happened to be that bully's seat. Anyway, my little girl got mad, aka royally pissed, at seeing a nice kid being bullied by a bigger girl. She was 13 in 5th grade. Long story short, my crazy kid took our bottle of Hershey's chocolate syrup onto the bus that day and made damn sure to squirt it all over that bully's seat. The bully sat in it and was immediately ridiculed for crapping her pants once she got to school. That is not a label you lose, lol. I knew that kid, by the way, and she was just bad, and she's currently in prison. Probably will be for life. My daughter was 6 in 1st grade. My small acts of vengeance. I, 15 FDM but not out IRL, have a super fundamentalist Hindu family, and when I'm on my period, I'm not allowed to go into the kitchen, touch clothes that I'm not wearing, and am generally treated like I contaminate everything I touch. My dad's also a massive bully in many other ways, and has tried to break my spirit from the moment I gain sentience. Every month, when they aren't looking, I use all the hand towels. They're contaminated, but don't realize it. My one small victory while being otherwise powerless. Edit. I feel the need to specify that I'm American and am trying to move out when I turn 18. Push me okay, I'll steal all your food. So this is quite recent and ongoing. As you are all aware, things are tight at the moment. So saving any kind of money is welcome. So I recently, about a month ago, found out that my local store did discounts on out-of-date food, and if you buy anything at 9 p.m. or after, it's discount further to 10 p. So 3 times a week I would pop down and see what bargains I could get. I was always respectful of other shoppers. If there was multiple items, I'd only take 1 or 2, so other people could have some as well. I came to find out by talking to the store staff there was Mr. 10p man. He would come in at 9 p.m. and take the lot. The staff didn't like him. This didn't really affect me as I always got there a few minutes before 9. So I never meet him, until one day I did. I was going through the food to see what goodies I could get. When he appeared by me, he slapped my hand away as I was about to pick up a pizza, and took the pizza for himself. I was in complete shock for a moment, glared at him but didn't say anything as I didn't want to cause a scene. Next thing I know, he's pushing me out of the way, wipes out the shelf and scurries off to pay. I didn't confront him, didn't say anything. I had already formed a plan. Now I go every night. I get down there for 10 minutes to 9 p.m. and I take everything. Doesn't matter what it is. If at 10 p. it's mine. I pay dead on 9 p.m. and have the lovely warm feeling of watching him look at the empty shelf every night before I leave. I can't help but smile as I take my goodies home. VW great on gas. This tale comes from my grandfather. He was a notorious prankster back in his day. Somehow, I never heard this story, which is a bit annoying since I've heard the other tales 100x times, but it's nice to hear something new. I corroborated this story with another family member who recalled details that I didn't mention, so I'm certain is true. Grandpa was always a GM man. Worked for them right out of high school until he retired. Well, way back in the day when he was a lad in, a neighbor got a new VW. Wouldn't let up about how great it was, especially on gas. So Grandpa hatched a plan. Every night he would sneak over and put a little bit of fuel into the tank of the VW. Did this for a few months. He stopped for a while. After a bit more time, he started to siphon a bit of gas out of the tank. Neighbor took the car back to the dealership to try to figure out why the MPG dropped off a cliff. Nobody could figure it out. I guess the neighbor was a loudmouth. Part of the reason plan was hatched in the first place. Raised a big stink around town about how the car was a scam. He got ripped off. Dealership wouldn't fix ECT. So VW flew in engineers from Germany to try and figure it out. Everyone was stumped. Grandpa stopped messing about. Eventually everyone kind of got over it and life went back to normal. He never did fess up about what he did, however, and I don't think the guy ever found out. I became super fit and lost quite some weight out of sheer pettiness. Roughly 1.5 years ago, I had a fallout with a friend. I spare you the details, but we gradually did not get along anymore. I was sad, but I also felt relief that the constant arguments and stress I had dealing with her ended. Up until she started badmouthing my other friends because they did not take her side, which started to make me resentful. It came with quite a surprise I only realized much later. I always struggled with my weight to the point that I started getting sore joints and back, especially while going to concerts or anything else that required me to stand around for a while. It troubled me that not even physical pain was enough of a motivator. The thing just is, the friend I had to cut ties with always had a very mean girl attitude with other women who were slimmer than her, commented about people's food choices behind their backs if they tried to make better choices. She always projected her insecurities so hard onto them, going as far as calling them traumatized just because they managed to keep thin. And you know, it is so weird when I realized it. But do you know this, the best revenge is to thrive? Pretty much this and a tickling sense of super giga pettiness finally gave me the motivation to tackle my goal. I am 40 IBS down, no sore back, knees or ankles in months. I finally found the kinds of sport I feel I can do and have fun doing so as I get older, trying my best to keep healthy for as long as possible. I feel bomb, dwelling in the petty thought that it would make her super pissed to see how I am doing.